Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be looking at this Facebook Marketplace piece that I got for $100. And at first glance, it might look like there's not really much wrong with it, but the finish is completely failing. And the closer you get to the piece, the more that becomes apparent, as you'll see in a second as I turn the camera down on an angle. Now the top is completely, well, half of it is completely gone. Pretty much the finish has been completely damaged, and as I move down on the sides here, you can see all those little spots are finish damage. And just to give you a little bit better of an idea, I'm going to come down and with my fingernail I'm actually just going to scrape off some of the finish that's already bubbling. So I'm going to have to address all of that. And we'll look inside the drawers, and the drawers are actually in very good condition. They're really nice solid oak drawers. And this drawer coming up has some dividers in them, which I love. I think that it shows a bit of elegance, which reflects on how well built this piece is. Now this drawer is absolutely beautiful. The pulls on them are built in right into the drawer face. Or not even built into the drawer face, they're part of the drawer face. And the other drawers are quite beautiful as well. They have a beautiful veneer on them, and the veneer is completely undamaged, which is great news for me. Alright, so without any further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get into this piece. Alright, step 1, removing all the hardware. I just had to get a new solo cup because my old one broke, so I'm starting a new solo cup to put my hardware into. Now this hardware was pretty heavy. It's definitely solid brass, but it's extremely tarnished, so I'm gonna have to do a little bit of brasso magic on it. I'm not really a fan of this hardware, but it is original to the piece, so I'm gonna polish it up. Now this piece wasn't really that dirty at all, but I still want to give it a nice good cleaning because I want to make sure that all of the residual oils from people's hands, dirt and dust is off of this piece before the sanding process. And I'm just showing me giving it a superficial cleaning right here, but I did clean every square inch of this piece. I cleaned inside the frame, inside the drawers, on the outside. I tried to make sure that there wasn't a speck of dust left. And for this piece, I decided to use my carbide scraper because the finish was so flaky and sun bleached that it was coming off extremely easily. Now, I know these carbide scrapers can seem a little intimidating for anybody who's new at this. So a few tips that I can provide would be, first, number 1, before you do anything, just inspect your blade. Make sure that your blade has a nice clean edge on it with no burrs or imperfections. You want to eliminate the possibility of scratching or gouging the wood, and just make sure it has a nice sharp blade. And number 2, when you're applying the carbide scraper to the finish, you want to make sure that your carbide scraper is completely flat against the surface, applying just enough pressure until you start seeing some material being removed. And honestly, the rest comes with time. It just comes with a bit of practice, and eventually you'll get the hang of it. It's really not that difficult. It just comes with a bit of muscle memory and time. Now right here, I'm going along the edge, and you want to be really careful when you're scraping along edges because it's very easy to gouge the wood. You'll even see in some shots when I'm scraping along the edge, I'm actually using one hand because you really only need minimum pressure to get that finish off on the edge. Okay, now for scraping down the drawers. These drawers were a little bit tricky because you could see that there are a bunch of seams in between the veneer. It's not just one sheet of veneer, it's picture framed. And I have to be really careful when I'm scraping in between those seams because you can easily catch the seam and tear it. So if you are new to this and you have a drawer face that is full of different seams or even just one seam, you might want to use a chemical stripper instead, just to be on the safe side. so all of this trim now, I obviously can't scrape because it's way too decorative. There are so many high and low spots, and it would be pretty much impossible to scrape. So I'm using a chemical stripper. I use Clean Strip Premium Stripper. I just find that this stripper works the best for me. It really cuts through all those layers of finish or even paint or whatever you're working with. It cuts through very easily. And this lacquer finish that was on here was pretty thick, and I only really needed to do one pretty heavy coat on it to get through. And all I'm doing is applying the chemical stripper, letting it sit for about 5 minutes, and then I'm coming in with a nylon brush to scrub the finish off. And I would recommend using a nylon bristle brush when working with wood, because if you use one that's made of metal, it can easily scratch the wood. And I'm cleaning up all of these leftover stripper gunk with acetone. And I know a lot of people like to use mineral spirits after to clean up all the stripper gunk, but for me personally, I find that acetone works a lot better. And as you can see, it's actually kind of funny. There was so much decorative parts to this dresser that it was actually chewing up the shop towel, so I had to switch to a rag. And this drawer right here was a little bit of a nightmare because there were so many decorative bits to it. And I really had to spend some time to make sure that that finish was off and I was down to the raw wood. Alright, and it's finally time to sand. And since I got pretty much all of the finish off via scraping, I'm just going to start with a 180 grit just to get any remaining finish off. And I'm going to work my way up to 320 grit before I put my finish on. And I just wanted to slow down this clip right here just to show you how slow I'm actually sanding, because it could be a little misleading when you see all the footage very, very sped up. Which we have to do, obviously, because if we didn't speed it up, this video would be 10 hours long. But it is very misleading, so I just wanted to give a little clip here of me sanding in real time, just to show you what it looks like. You really should be sanding about 1 inch per second. Because if you sand too fast for the machine, you could get some of those pigtail swirls, and those are no fun to get out. So just remember to try to keep your sanding to a nice slow consistency. And I'm just giving the inside of the carcass a nice sanding. Now for all of the trim, of course, since it's not flat, I'm going to be using Surf Prep's sponge pad. And this thing is absolutely fantastic for getting into all of those uneven areas and decorative bits that would be absolutely a pain to hand sand. And I did have to hand sand a little bit, but it was minimal. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be leaving some of the color, the leftover color that's in between all those little decorative areas, because I think that when I put my stain on, I feel like it's going to give a little bit of dimension and depth to the look of the trim and the drawer face. Normally I would sand all of the color out, but I really think it's going to give some extra pop and character to the piece. Okay, now that my first round of sanding is completed, I'm going to be addressing these two dark water stains that are on the top. Now, if this top was solid wood, I would just be able to sand them out and not have to worry about anything, but this top is veneer, so I don't want to sand through it. So as you can see, I'm using some oxalic acid. And in case you haven't seen any of my previous videos, oxalic acid is basically just a wood bleach, and it's really going to help me get rid of these stains. Now, if you're using oxalic acid for the first time, you're going to want to take some, it comes in a powdered crystal kind of form, and you're going to want to put some into hot water. I usually put it in about a half cup of water, and you want to keep mixing it until you see that the oxalic acid kind of stops absorbing into the water, and then you're ready to go. I usually use a chip brush to apply it to my projects. I find that that's really the best way to apply it. And you're going to want to apply this to the entire surface that you're working with. So for example, the stains are on the top of my piece, so I'm going to be applying this to the entire top. If I were to apply it just to the stained area, it would lighten only that particular area and it would stand out like a sore thumb. So I hope that's helpful. So you're just going to want to apply it, let it completely dry, and then you're going to want to rinse it off completely about 2 to 3 times just to make sure that all those oxalic acid crystals are completely gone. And you're going to want to do that with a wet shop towel, as you can see me doing here. I'm just cleaning up the back panel a little bit because I'm going to be applying some stain to it later, so I'm going to prepare it for that. Alright, now it's time to start staining, and I'm going to be making my own stain actually with Odie's Oil Pigments, Mr. Cornwall's Creative Colors. And I'm going to be mixing together 2 colors actually to make a custom blended color, walnut and brick. So I'm just going to take some Odie's Safer Solvent, and I'm going to pour some into my jar here, and then I'm going to add some pigment to it. And you want to add the pigment directly to the Safer Solvent first, because the Safer Solvent is going to break down that pigment and get it ready for the oil. And then you want to give it a really good mix, hopefully without splashing it all over your hand like I just did. And then when you've more or less found the color you're looking for, you're going to add some Odie's Super Duper Everlasting Oil. And you always want to give this stuff a really good mix before you use it. Now I'm making a ton of stain right here. I really don't need this much, but I'm going to be using it for other projects, so it's okay. You only really need probably maybe 1/8 of what I made to be able to do one full piece. And you can see here, I just have my little tester board. I believe it's maple that I'm using just to test the stain out, and this third one that I made is absolutely perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. And I'm going to be using a 1500 grit Mercurmelan pad to apply the stain. Alright, now it's time for some Odie's oil. I know you guys are probably like, oh my god, he uses Odie's oil on every single piece. And yeah, it's my favorite finish to use. It's a tung oil based hard wax oil finish, completely non-toxic, and a very durable finish. I'm just going to give it a really good mix, and I'm going to start applying. And just like the stain, I'm going to be using a 1500 grit Mercurmelan pad to apply the Odie's. Here I'm just going to be putting some Odie's Super Duper Everlasting oil over my stain. And one really important thing to remember is that if you're going to use a stain like this, you're going to have to wait 3 to 5 days before you're able to put your top coat on. If you make an Odie's custom stain with their pigments and you don't wait the 3 to 5 days, you run the risk of some color loss of the stain. So just something to remember. And you can see the parts that I have stained, it looks very dull and chalky almost. But no worries, that all changes as soon as I put my top coat on. I'm going to let the Odie's sit on there for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to start the hardware. All I'm doing here is I'm just giving these poles a little bit of a Brasso bath. And I'm going to let them sit in the Brasso for about 10 minutes. And you could tell that the Brasso is really working and starting to lift all of that tarnish off because of that blue color that it displays. And once it's ready, I'm going to take a nylon brush and begin scrubbing off all that tarnish. And these pulls were so tarnished that I actually had to use 2 rounds of Brasso to get it off. And I'm just throwing all the pulls in a little container of soapy water just to get the residue of Brasso off of it. And then I'm going to start with Meguiar's compound. And I'm just applying a little bit to the surface of the hardware, and with this cotton wheel that I'm using on my Dremel, I'm going to be buffing it out to reveal that beautiful shine. And now my Odie's oil has sat for about 2 hours, so I'm going to buff it all off. And last but not least, I'm going to re-add the hardware. And one thing, unfortunately, I was not able to show because there was a problem with the file on my phone, because that's what I'm using to record all these videos, was me sanding down and shellacking the drawers, the insides of the drawer boxes. So sorry about that. I just want to thank you guys for watching another video. I absolutely love making these videos. It's so much fun for me, even though editing these videos is a little bit of a pain, but it's worth it. If you guys like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm going to try to put out a video once every 2 weeks. I was trying to do once a week, but it's a little bit too much, but we'll see what happens. Hope you guys like the reveal.